Magandang araw. Salamat sa pagimbita sa akin sa espesyal na kaganapang ito. Please pardon my Filipino. First and foremost, the warmest and kindest of greetings to everyone in the Republic of the Philippines, especially faculty members of the College of Education at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. I am Iril Jaime Muhammad Adnan. I work at University Technology Mara, the biggest university system, public university system in Malaysia. I'm a senior lecturer, also the Deputy Dean for Student Affairs and Alumni, but very close to my heart is the heart of a researcher. I am extremely humbled and grateful for this invitation to be the plenary speaker and to discuss the topic Qualitative Knowledge Generation in your Research Colloquium, also dubbed as the first International Research Conference or WebCon, and the 6th Guro Research Award, with the theme this year, promoting research excellence while embracing innovative platforms in times of pandemic. I'm also extremely sorry that I cannot be present for the full event, but I shall endeavor to be with all of you for the Q&A to end this plenary session. I've been summoned to a work-related meeting that I cannot miss. I am so sorry. I'm also very sad, and my prayers are with the people in the Republic of the Philippines. I heard that there was a typhoon. I hope everyone is okay, and don't forget, with COVID-19 all around us, my prayers, my wishes, warmest wishes, best wishes are with all of you. Stay safe, stay well. So today, I will be sharing with all of you, albeit in not real time, in video, a topic which is extremely close to my heart and mind, which is qualitative knowledge generation. I am a qualitative researcher, a qual researcher, and I always choose qual over quan. No offense to our quan friends, but qual is very close to my heart because qual is pretty awesome. Okay, whilst most of what we discuss will be on this particular topic, which is qualitative knowledge generation, I shall also endeavor to touch on real-world examples of how technologies can actually contribute to the process of phenomenological qualitative knowledge making, or what I term as, or what my supervisor termed as, my PhD supervisor termed as qualitative knowledging. Yeah? From the application of ethnography methods to collect data online, to the use of voice recognition to prepare interview transcripts, to the management and analysis of massive qualitative or textual data records using Cactus or computer-assisted qualitative data analysis software. There are actually many opportunities and possibilities for all qualitative research out there, researchers out there, to contribute to qualitative knowledging, whilst simultaneously raising the overall quality of their qualitative empirical research efforts. Okay? As such, my practical presentation today will be particularly useful to advance students of qualitative research methods and for early career researchers alike. I hope the short video clip just now was useful. Right, so let's get back to our topic of qualitative knowledge generation or qualitative knowledging. Right, when we begin, let's do a rundown of the clip just now, yeah? So what is imagination? What is imagination? It's the faculty or it's the action of forming new ideas, images, concepts of external objects not present to the senses. Or it can also be, imagination is the ability of your mind to be creative and or resourceful. Yeah? Another way to look at imagination is within research, within qualitative research, imagination is that thing that you cannot touch, but drives you to see the world as a qualitative researcher. And this normally is a requirement. If you want to do qualitative research, then you need to have qualitative research imagination. You have to be able to imagine the world through qualitative lenses, as a researcher or as a stranger. I'll explain more about that in a bit. So the first rule in qualitative knowledge generation is to have qualitative research imagination, imagining things that others don't see as a problem or issue or dilemma, but you have the capability to see it. Right? And you have to remember also that when you talk about qualitative knowledge generation, ladies and gentlemen, what you need to know is qual knowledge normally touches things that cannot be touched. So this is a real challenge, especially if you are just starting to do qualitative research. Right. Moving on. One of the things you need to understand when it comes to qualitative knowledge generation or qual knowledge generation or qual knowledging is the world that you see as a qualitative researcher, or your worldview must be must be that of a phenomenologist. Alright, so phenomenologist, of course, as you can see, as you can guess, the stem there would be phenomenon. Yeah, phenomenon. So it means the things that we study, right, are things related to things related to lived experiences. It involves looking at, measuring, examining ideas, feelings, motives, perception, imagination, of course, things that move us, forces that move us from the inside. Okay? From the inside. Compare this to positivists or quant researchers, quantitative researchers. Positivists, they seek facts. They seek causes. They look at social phenomena, as social facts. They see this as external things that influence us, right? So for phenomenologists, we see forces. These are forces, internal forces that influence us, that move us, the feelings, the motives, the ideas, the perception. It's inside. But if you're a positivist, you're a quantitative researcher, you see them from the outside coming in. All right? So quant methods, right? Because of this, quant methods look at numbers and statistics. Whilst qual methods, they are meant to gain Verstappen. This is from Max Weber, 1968. Verstappen, Verstahen, means an emphatic, a very strong understanding of ideas, feelings, motives, perception, imagination. So that is our worldview. So from that worldview of the phenomenologists, we create qualitative knowledge. Alright, so that's the beginning of the story of qualitative research. Okay, so you need to also understand that some of the things within research imagination involve socio-history. Knowledge is used to understand the past, the present, the future. Right? Past, present, future. This is part of sociology, by the way. And we look at causes of social change. Socio-history, past, present, future, and causes of social change. In qualitative work, normally you will see this timeline, past, present, and future. Because like for myself, I study identity, how your identity changes through time. Right? In the past, what happened to you that you want to adopt this identity position now? And now, in the here and now, what do you plan to do in the future? Or what do you see yourself as, right? Maybe 5 or 10 years now in terms of your identity. So we have the past, we have the present, and the future. So that is socio-history. Right? Qualitative work involves some part of socio-history. Alright? And it also involves looking at causes of social change. But the causes that we look at are not external causes, but they are internal causes. Why did you choose to do that? Right? Why did you choose to think like that? Why did you make that choice? Any reasons? And by making that choice, how do you see yourself in the future? So that, so you can understand. That's the concept of socio-history. Another way to think about research imagination other than socio-history, you should also look at the work of Schutz in 1962. 1962, he talks about 3 levels of knowledge generation. Okay? 3 levels of knowledge generation. And this is especially true for us qual researchers. We generate knowledge to understand the world and to create know-how and understanding. So creating knowledge per se happens in 3 levels, he says, in 3 levels. So which level applies to the qualitative researcher? Okay, there are 3 levels. The first level is what we call the cartographer, the map maker, the expert, right? For lack of better words, that's a professor. The professor sitting in his office looking at the map of the world, and then, the professor, she or he, will be able to tell you, look, right, this is the economic model of the world, this is capitalism, this is socialism. They know everything. In terms of the world, but they do not know what is happening in the real world, on the ground, or what I like to call the field. The field. They might not know what is happening in the field, the true story which is happening in the field. Right? So the cartographer, level 1, is the map maker, the expert, the person who makes the map of the world. But the person who makes the map of the world does not necessarily know how the real world is moving, how the real world is changing, what is happening in reality in the real world. So that's one level. So in level 2, at level 2, you also have the ordinary person, the normal person, the person living in that map, right? You, me, we are the normal person living in the map. We go to work every day. For example, you go to class every day, right? You submit your assignments. When it's time to submit, I mark your assignments. So that's part of your everyday life. And remember our life pre-COVID, before COVID-19 came, right? We used to go out, to go to the movies. We go for dinner together, for lunch, social events, right? We relax, we go on holidays. We do many things together, right? Sometimes together, sometimes alone. But these are the things we do as ordinary people. Go to work, you eat, you sleep, you play, and that's it. You don't think too much. You're not an expert. You're just living life as it's supposed to be. You don't care whether it's the capitalist system or the socialist system. You don't care so much. But you do care. For example, if you have to pay high taxes, you start to question, whoa, why is the government charging me so high for my tax? So at that point, you start questioning. But other than that, well, you don't care. Life goes on. Life is good. Life is good. At the third level, and this is where we come in as the qualitative researcher, we become the stranger. We are supposed to become the stranger. And what are you as the stranger? You come in, you and me, we come in as strangers, as qualitative researchers, and we see everything and we start questioning everything. Okay, right? Talking about taxes just now, all right? So the people are complaining, for example, right? They are complaining about the taxes. Why are they complaining? Why are they complaining? So we go down and we talk to these ordinary people, ordinary persons, and we ask them, why are you complaining about the taxes? How much do you have to pay? Right? What's the story? What's the story? So it's always about the story. So the stranger, you and I, the stranger, the qualitative researcher, looks for the story. So what's the story? What's the real story? What is happening? What is happening in reality? What is happening? Okay? So we understand also that whatever is happening is more than what the map maker knows. The expert, the politicians, the professors, for example, right? The people who go on the television, right? These people know what is happening. Well, in my opinion, people are upset because they have to pay high taxes. Right? It's maybe because, the government is not doing so much, says the professor. But the government says, hey, look, we need the money to run our country. Okay? People are just upset, because, that's what citizens do. They get upset whenever they have to pay high taxes. But when we go to the ground, we understand, for example, right? When we interview, when we find people on the ground, when we find the ordinary person, they are actually upset, for instance, because they don't see their tax money working. The government is collecting a lot of tax, for example, but it's not being used to develop the nation. So that makes them upset. So that is the reason. And then we go further down. We understand that also in society there is a strata system. You've got, like in Malaysia, we've got what we call the T20, the top 20 people, the top 20%, the rich ones. And then we have the M40, middle 40%, yeah? And then we have another group which is the B40, the bottom 40. We call them the B40, those who need help, more help, for example, day laborers or, weekly wage earners. So all of these groups, right? These ordinary people, they are part of society. They are part of the system. So where we come in is that we ask them, what's the story? What's the story? Okay. So, either you become an ordinary person or you become a cartographer, a map maker. If you choose to become either the ordinary person or the cartographer, you still cannot see the world through the lenses of a qual researcher. A qual researcher is a stranger. He or she or he is a stranger in society. He or she is asking, always asking, what's the story? What is really happening? So, if you want to ask me, and this is my personal philosophy, in terms of becoming a qual researcher, what you are doing is actually not just looking at data, but you are actually telling stories of real lives of people. What you are actually doing is becoming what we call a change agent. Look at the work of Michael Fullan, you will understand this. We are actually trying to change society for the better, because by knowing what is really happening, by having access to the real story, right, we can help the government, for example, to come up with better policies to help people like for us in Malaysia in the B40 group. And we did this. I'm very happy, I'm very proud to say that, for example, in the last budget, we fought to ask for cash handouts to help the B40, targeted cash handouts, to help, for example, single parents, single income families, normal weekly wage earners, people whose work, have been taken over by robots or AI due to the fourth industrial revolution, and so on and so forth. Okay, so back to our story about the phenomenologists and the positivists, right? So, what we try to do to find the story, is we try to understand experience. We try to understand feelings. How do you feel? What did you go through? How is it that now you are feeling this or you're doing that? Has it got something to do with what happened in the past? Right? And what is happening now in the present? Will this have any marks on what will happen in your future? What you plan for your future, for example. So understanding experience, understanding feelings, understanding imagination. Can you imagine what will happen, in another 2-3 years, for example, if COVID-19 subsides? What will be your plan now that the world has changed tremendously? So these are the things we look at, right? We look at research. Our research works at the individual or small group level. We don't focus on a big group. Okay, we don't focus on big groups. Individuals mean sometimes we can just take one person and look at the life of that person for a duration of years on end. And that's what my supervisor, Professor Dr. Gary Bachuisen at the University of Auckland is doing. He's looking at research. He's doing research on life changes, a life history of people, right? Which takes years upon years to happen. So you can be like that. You can just take one person and look at changes in every year that happens to that person's life, for example. You can also look at a small group. You can do, for example, focus group discussions with 5 or 6 groups. You can trace the group. You can trace changes that happen to the group, for example, for a duration of 6 months or 1 year or even longer than that. Okay? You have to also understand that as qual researchers, as phenomenologists, we are looking at situated knowledge. Situated knowledge means knowledge which is valid at a certain point in time, right? And at that point only relevant to that situation, in that country, in that context, in that research site. Okay, so it's very situated. It's situated knowledge. Experience is very situated. My experience and your experience will be totally different. We can experience something, we can go, for example, we can go ride a roller coaster I might like it so much, I'll be laughing and laughing. Or you might be just beside me screaming and crying, for example, or the other way around. So the experience is the same, but how we perceive that experience is different. And this is what you have to understand. That's why the knowledge generated by qualitative researchers is very situated. Okay? So we have a very small focus, right? Very small focus areas on selected, very small focus areas on selected participants. Now, how does this compare to quant researchers, quantitative researchers, or positivists? Right? Whilst we measure experience and feelings, imaginations, perception, they measure dimensions. Real things that can be measured. Seriously. What we do, we measure things which are not measurable. You cannot touch experience. You cannot touch feelings, can you? You cannot touch imagination. You cannot touch perception. But for quantitative researchers, they can. They measure dimensions, or what they call, or what we term as variables, right? They look at mean. They look at mode. They look at median. They look at general trends over time. They are able, by the way, quantitative researchers are able to provide generalizations. They can. Why? Because research, survey respondents, for example, can be thousands upon thousands. While we look at a very small group of people. So we have a very small focus, they have a very wide focus. This is us, this is them. And their sample size is large. Us, we have criteria for participant selection. We select participants for reasons, for special reasons. Okay? So that's the difference. If I want to give you a good metaphor to understand quantitative knowledge, quantitative knowledge, quant knowledge is as wide as the sea. As wide as the sea. It's wide. As wide as the sea. Qual knowledge is as deep as the sea. As deep as the sea. One point only, but as deep as possible. Right? Deep as possible. So that's one way for you to make sense, right, between qual knowledge and quant knowledge. Okay. You need to understand also, before I start talking about how to apply, technology and things like that into qual research, you need to understand some principles of qualitative research. There are 8. Number 1, you have to understand meaning that people attach to constructs. The meaning. Right? Single mother, single father, disabled person, chief executive officer, day laborer. Right? So these are constructs. Right? University student, master student, postgraduate student, degree student, university lecturer. So these are constructs. These are social constructs. Right? Berger and Lachman, Social Construction of Reality. Read up on that. Okay? These constructs, they are constructs, but we need to understand what is the meaning that people derive from these constructs. What's the meaning that people derive? What does it mean to be a university student in the time of COVID-19? Right? Are we still learning, for example, because it's, everything is done online? What does it mean to become a university instructor, a lecturer in the time of COVID-19? So what's the meaning that people attach to this construct? That's the first principle. Second principle, we develop understanding from data inductively. Inductive means we collect the data first, then we do thematic analysis. Right? We look at words, we look at utterances, we look at meaning that people attach. So that's very, very important. We get the data first, and then we interpret the data. Right? What themes emerge? What stories emerge? What's the real story that came up from our interviews, from our focus group discussion, from our online data collection, ethnography, for example. So that's what we do. Right? Number 3, we look at the context. Context is extremely important. Context is extremely important. We never ignore context. Whilst, for example, quantitative researchers, context is, when you do a survey is just a survey. Anyone can fill it, right? There and then. And it's actually contextless, right? But for qualitative researchers, context is extremely important. We also understand people holistically. We look at the big picture. What's the story? What's the big story? And then we have the small story. Look at Bamberg. Bamberg's work, he talks about, Bamberg talks about big story, small stories. So it's very important. Stories, narrative research, part of qualitative research talks about that. Right? Holistic stories. Number 4, we see how people normally think and act. We don't experiment upon them. We don't ask them to just fill in surveys, Likert scale, strongly agree, strongly disagree. We ask them, really, how do you feel right now? How is COVID-19 really, making it hard to you as a worker, as a father, as a mother? So we look at how things are normally, right? We also believe, number 5, that all perspectives should be studied. All perspectives. We don't ignore. We set this variable, that variable. No. That's not how we do it. Right? Everything must be studied. Okay, it's fun, but it's also challenging at the same time because we will have a large data record. Yeah, and normally our data record will be textual, words. Numbers, quantitative. Words, qualitative, words, numbers, quantitative. Okay. Number 6, we try to emphasize the meaningfulness of our work. It doesn't stop there. When you do qual research, you are also a social commentator. When you have your data, for example, you are allowed to write into newspapers or in magazines, right? And if you're lucky enough and when you have become the expert that you're supposed to become, don't worry. You can go on television, you can go on radio, and you will have the opportunity to share your views. Right? Right? Like I was telling you just now, to fight for cash handouts. I was part of the gang, trying to tell the Malaysian government that, look, cash handouts are needed still. Even though COVID is has passed its first year anniversary, we still need to give cash handouts to the B40, to the very vulnerable group within society. So we fought for that, and we have the data to back ourselves. Right? So meaningfulness, social agents, right? Social engineers, or whatever you want to call yourself, but our work is meaningful. The data we hold is meaningful because our data tells the story of what is happening in the real world. Number 7, 5, 6, 7. You have to know, as a qual researchers, that all settings and everyone is unique. Everyone is unique. Okay? All settings, all people from all races, ethnic groups, gender, rural areas, town areas, remote areas, everyone is unique. And because of this uniqueness, it leads to the richness of the data, or what we call thick data. THICK, thick data. Read up on what thick data is and you will understand more about this part of qual research. Finally, number 8, as an introduction, right? Very short introduction to what qualitative knowledge generation is. Number 8, learn the craft of qualitative research. To become a qual researcher, learn the craft. Our methods are not constraints. We have methods. For example, we have interviews. We can have free interviews, open interviews. We have semi-structured interviews. We have focus group discussions, we have diary research, we have online data collection, online interviews, we have online FGDs, focus group discussion. We have many methods, instruments to collect qual data, but these are not constraints. What is most important for the qual researcher is the craft, the skill of doing qualitative research. There you go. Right, I'll continue a little bit after this with the story of how technology can help you to do qual research, and what else you need to know about qual research in the here and now, in this time, in these challenging times. Thank you. Welcome back, and to end this presentation, this plenary speech, ladies and gentlemen, dear audience, virtual audience, there are things that you can do now that was not actually possible in the past, and one of that is ethnography. We've got ethnography. I know you understand ethnography. We've got now ethnography. Look at Kozinet's work. Kozinets. He talks about what ethnography is. Methods to collect data online. Right. We are now allowed to collect data online. Data from social media, for example. Very useful. It's very useful to understand ethnography. You can use ethnography to collect data very easily. And now, with physical distancing and all that stuff, right? Ethnography will be a very useful research methodology for you to learn, to study. You can also use Cactus, right? Computer-assisted qualitative data analysis software. You've got Atlas TI. My personal choice, my personal favorite will be NVivo. They help you. These kinds of apps, application software, they help you to manage the data. They do not help in terms of analysis. Yeah, don't think that you just feed in all the interview transcripts, all your focus group discussion transcript, then suddenly voila, the data will come out. This is it. These are all the tips. It's not that simple. It's not like SPSS for quantitative researchers, right? What it does do, what they do, Cactus, right? Cactus, computer-assisted qualitative data analysis software, they help us as qualitative researchers to manage our data, right? To think through the data, right? And to see links between certain themes, certain words, certain utterances, to see links where links are not seeable from the outset. So this is what you have to use Cactus for. So it's good training. If you're thinking to use it, it's very good. But it's not actually something that you feed in the data, you feed in your qual data, and then your thesis comes out at the end, your dissertation comes out in the end. Well, I hope it was like that, but no. No, but it does help in terms of data management. Okay. Another thing you might like to do now is to see how you can use technologies like voice recognition. Voice recognition is a very good technology to adopt, to learn, right? To use as a platform when you need to do transcription. So we, as qual researchers, we normally deal with text. So text need Yeah, text, your textual data records, your interviews need to be transcribed, made into, words that you can actually analyze, can thematize, you can scrutinize. So use voice recognition by all means as a way to help you to type the data out into NVivo or Atlas TI. It's a very good technology to learn, and it can definitely help you in terms of managing your textual data record. And that's a little bit of the story. To end, one of the reasons, one of the points, one of the criticisms that people normally throw to qualitative researchers, yeah, well, that's good. What's the validity, reliability of your data? Quantitative researchers, experiment people normally ask that. Yeah, quasi-experimental people, they normally ask us that. What's the reliability? What's the validity? Tell them we have quality in qualitative research. We have quality. We have quality standards, audit trails, and all that in qualitative work. You need to mention that, and you need to maintain the quality of your qualitative data. Look at Uwe, Flick, F-I-L-I-C-K. His work. He's a professor of social research, by the way. Professor of qualitative research. So he knows a lot, definitely, about qualitative research and how to manage it. Look at the idea of how you maintain qualitative research. There's a very good set of books. Sage, if I'm not wrong, it's from Sage. Handbook of Qualitative Research, if I'm not wrong. There are eight sets of book in there. I might suggest to the College of Education at the Polytechnic, University of the Philippines, to buy that, to get that for the student population and the faculty there, the academics there. Well, that's it. I hope it's been a nice journey, a useful one for you. Welcome to the world of qualitative research. So glad to have you, and maybe one day we'll work together, and we'll get to generate qualitative knowledge. Thank you so much for having me. Again, apologies I cannot be with you live today, but hopefully this is good enough in the time of COVID-19. Take care, stay safe. Thank you so much again from Malaysia. Much love, much respect to the people of the Republic of the Philippines. Hopefully one of these days we can get to meet face to face. We sit down together, have coffee, and we'll share our stories. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hope to see all of you face to face in real life one of these days. Thank you again for having me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.